Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, there is a specific kind of blindness we all have when we live in a big city like Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
You drive past the same intersection for 10, maybe 20 years. You see a brick building, maybe you notice a copper dome or a cornerstone, and you just register it as church.
It becomes wallpaper. It's just part of the furniture of the city.
Exactly. And then you keep driving. But today we are uh, stopping the car. We're getting out
Yeah.
because the stack of documents you brought in today,
Mm.
honestly, it blew my mind.
It's quite a story.
We are looking at a very specific, fascinating slice of Toronto history, the Macedonian and Bulgarian churches. And I'll be honest, before this, I thought this was just going to be about architecture.
Mm.
But it's not really about that at all, is it?
Not even close. I mean, if you strip away the bricks and the mortar, what you are actually looking at is a geopolitical thriller playing out on, Canadian soil.
Wow.
It's a story of immigrant resilience, absolutely, but it's also about how the incredibly volatile history of the Balkan Peninsula literally shaped the streetscape of Toronto.
And we have a lot of ground to cover. We're tracking this community from, well, a single group of laborers in 1910 all the way to the suburban sprawl of January 2026.
Right.
So the mission today is to understand how this single community arrived, fractured, reformed, and built these landmarks that we all see every day.
And to really get it, you have to look at the GTA today. It tells a tale of two identities. On one side, you have four churches historically identified as Macedono-Bulgarian.
With the hyphen, you told me that's important.
The hyphen is critical. And on the other side, you have four churches identified strictly as Macedonian Orthodox.
To an outsider, that just sounds like semantics, a distinction without a difference.
You would think so. But in this context, that distinction is everything. It represents wars, borders moving, and a century-long struggle for identity. That timeline shows how these massive geopolitical shifts in Europe rippled right into community halls in Canada.
So let's unpack this. We have to start at the beginning. Before the splits, before the suburbs, we're going to the mother church. We're jumping back to August 1910.
1910 is the key year. This is the birth of St. Cyril and Methody Cathedral. Now, you have to picture Canada in 1910. For an immigrant from the Balkans, from regions like Koster or Lorraine, it was alien. There was no safety net.
That's what struck me in the notes. This wasn't just a place to pray. The documents call it a unifying center for exactly 1,094 immigrants. That number is so specific.
It had to be. These weren't just congregants. They were shareholders in a survival mechanism. Mostly men, laborers, coming from a very unstable Ottoman Empire. They were called Peckleberry migrant workers.
So they needed a place that spoke their language that could help them if they got sick.
That could bury their dead, which is why the figure of Archimandrite Theophylact is so huge here.
Dr. D. Mallon, right? That's his other name.
Yes, exactly. He was the first priest from 1911 to 1921, but calling him just a priest almost undersells it. He was the glue, a doctor of medicine and theology.
A healer of bodies and souls.
You could say that. He had to organize these 1,000-plus lonely, hardworking men into a real community.
And we can actually see who they were. The 1911 Protocol, the founding charter, it lists the names. Kuzo Temilkov, Haji Dimitar Perov, Simo Velyanov.
Don't forget George Arsoff and Gicho Gulin or Stavro Nikolov. These aren't just names in a dusty book. These are the patriarchs of families that are still active in the city today.
They were putting their meager savings on the line.
For something permanent, in a country that probably didn't feel like home yet.
Originally, they were at Trinity and Eastern, but the building everyone knows is at 237 Sackville Street.
Right, that move comes a bit later. The cornerstone for the Sackville building wasn't laid until 1948. And that event in 48, that's a great benchmark. It wasn't some quiet ceremony.
No, it was laid by Metropolitan Andre and the Mayor of Toronto.
Which tells you they'd arrived. They weren't invisible anymore. They were a civic force.
But I want to pull out one detail from the very beginning back in 1911 that I found really surprising. The notes say the church was consecrated by Archbishop Platon, but he was Russian, the Russian Archbishop of New York. Why is a Russian consecrating a Macedono-Bulgarian church?
That's a great question, and it's sort of a classic Orthodox Hierarchy 101 moment. You need a bishop to consecrate a church. You just do.
And there wasn't a Bulgarian one around.
Not in North America. The infrastructure just wasn't there. So in the spirit of Tan Orthodox unity, the Russian church stepped in to help. It was about Orthodoxy first, nationality second.
That's a lovely cross-cultural moment.
Yeah.
So fast forward to today, to early 2026, St. Cyril and Methody is still there on Sackville.
Still there. Celebrated its centennial in 2010. It is still the mother church under the Bulgarian diocese. But, like with any family, the kids eventually move out.
Right, and in Toronto, moving out usually means moving west or north, which brings us to the sister parish, St. George.
St. George Macedonian Bulgarian Church. This expansion happens during World War II, around 1941.
Why then, in the middle of a war?
Well, the community is just outgrowing the downtown core. People are moving a bit west toward the Regent Park area. They needed another spiritual home, something closer.
At 17 Regent Street, the notes describe it as very traditional.
It has always kept a very specific old world atmosphere. It was founded by the very Reverend Vasil Mikhailov, and families like the Atsa family were instrumental in keeping that cultural flavor alive. It's very intimate.
But St. George also gives us our first taste of the jurisdictional complexity. It says here that in 2011, the parish voted to join the Bulgarian Orthodox Church. Where were they before that?
That's a great catch. Historically, St. George operated a bit independently or was loosely tied to the OCA, the Orthodox Church in America.
Okay.
But you generally need to belong to a synod, a governing body, to be fully canonical. So in 2011, they formalized their identity. They voted.
Democracy in action. So now in 2026, they are tight-knit sister parishes with the mother church.
Exactly. Same bishop, same structure.
Okay, so we have the mother church and the sister parish. But there's the third sibling in this Macedono-Bulgarian line. And this one comes much later, 1973.
Holy Trinity, October 22, 1973.
What sparked a new church in the 70s? Just more growth?
Partly growth, but it was also about preservation. The 70s were a time of, modernization. Holy Trinity came from a group who wanted to preserve very specific liturgical traditions, the way the services were sung, the specific customs.
They wanted to hold on to the old way?
You could say that.
This is the one at 201 Monarch Park Avenue.
Correct. And if you go there, you have to look at the iconostasis, the big wall of icons. It's a masterpiece, built and painted by Nikola Kovachev.
A name that signifies a deep connection to old country artistic traditions.
Precisely. And today, Holy Trinity is thriving. Very active community hall. Families like the Alexopoulos and Antonov families, they've just passed their 50-year mark.
So if we pause here, we have this trio. St. Cyril and Methody, St. George, and Holy Trinity, all with the hyphen, all aligned with the Bulgarian diocese. It seems neat and tidy.
It does. For a moment.
But the story doesn't stay linear. We have to talk about the pivot. Because in the 1960s, a new name appears on the map. And the Bulgarian part of that name is gone.
This is the most complex part of the story. After World War II, the map of the Balkans changed dramatically. You had the Greek Civil War, socialist Yugoslavia, and within that, a distinct Macedonian national identity began to solidify, separate from the Bulgarian identity of the earlier immigrants.
So the hyphen, the bridge starts to snap.
Politically, yes. You had a new wave of refugees who didn't see themselves as Macedono-Bulgarian. They saw themselves as just Macedonian, full stop.
And they wanted a church that reflected that specific identity.
They didn't feel represented by the existing structure, so they created their own. This leads to the landmark, St. Clement of Ohrid.
The turning point. October 31st, 1962, a new charter is formed. And the building is at 76 Overlea Boulevard.
It's iconic.
It looks like a spaceship landed in East York. It's massive. You cannot miss it.
It was a statement. Construction starts in 64, consecrated in 65. It was the first specifically Macedonian Orthodox church in Canada. They were declaring, we are here and we are distinct.
And in our 2025 snapshot.
Today, St. Clement of Ohrid is the heavyweight. It's the cathedral for the American-Canadian Macedonian Diocese. It answers to the synod in Skopje, not Sofia. It hosts huge festivals. It is the center of gravity for the specifically Macedonian community.
So now we have these two distinct threads. And just like the rest of Toronto, as we move into the 80s and 90s, the community sprawls into the suburbs.
The Great Migration, it happens to everyone. The churches have to follow the people.
So let's look at the map for 2026. Where did they go?
We'll look east first. You have St. Nadella in Ajax.
485 Bailey Street West.
Exactly, serving the Durham region. And the source material notes, they just hosted a New Year levy in January 2026. So this is an active, vibrant hub right now.
And it's not just the east. There's St. Demetrius Selensky in Markham.
Another key Macedonian Orthodox establishment for the community that moved north.
And out west.
St. Elijah in Mississauga. serving that whole Western GTA slice.
So we've gone from one small church in 1910 to a network of 8 distinct parishes all across the GTA by 2026. It's an incredible story of growth.
It is, but I want to circle back to something you mentioned about the split.
Yeah, let's dig into that. Because on paper, this looks like a divided community. 2 hierarchies, 2 synods, one in Sofia, one in Skopje. It sounds tense.
It can be, politically. There are real disputes about names, history, territory. We shouldn't minimize them. But, and this is the key insight I want you to get here, is the paradox.
Lay it on me.
If you were to blindfold yourself and walk into St. Cyril and Methody on Sackville.
The mother church, the Macedonian-Bulgarian one.
Right, and then drive up to St. Clement on Overley, the Macedonian one, and take the blindfold off. What would you experience?
The architecture would be different, but the service.
Virtually identical. The liturgy is the same. The creed is the same. The saints they venerate are the same. The smell of the incense, the sound of the chanting, it is the same faith.
That's fascinating. So the theology isn't the wall.
No. The theology is the bridge. The disputes are administrative, historical, political. They are about who are we as a people, but the question, who are we as Christians, has the same answer in both buildings.
That completely reframes how I look at these places. It's like the institutional structure absorbs all the political shocks, allowing the actual faith to remain this steady current underneath.
That's a perfect way to put it. It explains the resilience. They're all drawing from the same spiritual well.
So bring this home for us. Why does this matter to someone who isn't Macedonian or Bulgarian driving past Regent Street?
I think it matters because it challenges how we view immigrant communities. We tend to think of them as monoliths, the Italians, the Greeks, but they aren't. They are living organisms. They evolve, they fracture, they reform.
It's a living history of waves. It's not static.
Exactly. Each church is a monument to a specific wave. St. Cyril and Methody was about survival in 1910. St. Clement was about asserting identity in the 60s. St. Nadella in Ajax is about maintaining community in the suburbs.
It really makes you look at the city differently. History isn't just in textbooks.
And it's in the fact that in January 2026, people are still gathering in Ajax to cut the vasilopita, special bread, keeping traditions alive that started in villages over a century ago. That is resilience.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought. We've established the theology is identical, yet the jurisdictions are split by history and politics. Different bishops, different headquarters. But the prayers are the same.
It leads to the big question. What actually defines the church?
Exactly. Does the church reside in the bricks and mortar, in the bishop? Or does it reside in the shared experience of the families who built them? If the politics vanished tomorrow, would the people in the pews even notice a difference?
That is the provocative thought, the institution versus the community. I think the answer is in the pews.
Something to think about the next time you're driving past Sackville Street or Overley Boulevard. Don't just drive by. Take a look. There's a whole world in there.
Indeed there is.
Thanks for guiding us through this. It's been a real pleasure.
Always a pleasure. Keep looking up at those buildings.
And to you, listening, thanks for diving deep with us. We'll catch you on the next one.